Meeting my ex-girlfriend Kaylee's family over the holidays was the worst experience of my life. We lived in New York, while her family was up in Vermont. Despite our relationship still being new, Kaylee felt it was serious enough to invite me for Christmas. Her family was small, and when we arrived at their house, I was struck by how isolated it was on a large, well-kept property. Their greeting was odd. Kaylee's dad barely smiled, though he gave me a firm handshake and a pat on the back, while her mother hugged me a little too tightly and had an unsettlingly wide, exaggerated smile. The house was beautiful inside, with a cozy, lodge-like feel. I met Kaylee's brother Paul, who was socially awkward, had a bowl cut, and wore a sleeve tattoo on his arm. Dinner was awkward but normal enough, though Paul kept staring at me in a way that made me uncomfortable. Later, we watched a Christmas movie. Every time I looked up, Paul was watching me, giving me a weird, judgmental look. I tried to ignore it, but then I saw something on Kaylee's phone that I wasn't expecting, a message from her mom asking, "Do you think he suspects anything yet?" Before I could read more, the phone locked, but the words had already unsettled me. Kaylee went to the bathroom, leaving her phone on the nightstand. I didn't mean to snoop, but I couldn't stop myself. Her phone had a password, but I had to know what the text was about. I tried to distract myself as Kaylee returned, but my mind raced. I wasn't sure what was going on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At 2 a.m., I heard Kaylee quietly leave the room. She went downstairs, and I heard voices, but they were low and seemed to be planning something. I went to the top of the stairs and overheard Kaylee tell someone to stand by the door. It all became clear then, something wasn't right. As I rushed to leave, I noticed her dad sitting in the corner of the room, staring at me blankly. I screamed and bolted out of the house, not stopping until I was at a gas station. I texted Kaylee, telling her that I knew what her family was up to and never wanted to see or hear from her again. I never got a response. But sometimes, the danger we face doesn't come from the people we know. It can be something completely unexpected. That's exactly what happened to someone on a quiet Christmas Eve night. It was Christmas Eve, and I was up late in the den, enjoying the snowstorm outside. The window was open so I could hear the snow falling, and the backyard light was on, creating a perfect winter scene. As I sat watching TV, I thought I saw something move outside. When I checked, there was nothing, so I sat back down, trying to forget about it. Then I heard the backyard gate slam shut. It sounded like someone was back there, so I put on my shoes and jacket and went out to check. In the snow, there were boot prints leading from one gate to the other. I decided not to follow them and went back inside. As I took off my jacket and boots, I saw muddy footprints on the carpet, leading across the room. I followed the prints to the office, expecting to find a broken window, but everything seemed normal until I looked up at the garage door. It was open. When I checked inside, I saw a person squatting down, facing the wall. As soon as they turned to look at me, I ran, screaming, and made it to my parents' room. My dad and I went to the garage, but the intruder was gone. The person had entered through an unlocked window. The whole experience made me realize how easily someone can break into your home if you're not careful about locking up. From that moment on, I never took the security of my home for granted again. While some threats are physical, others can be far more sinister and personal. And sometimes, even the most trusted faces can hide something terrifying behind them. I was 16 when my family attended a Christmas party at a fancy firehouse hosted by my parents' club. There were about 20 kids there, and each year, someone would dress as Santa and give out presents. This year, Michael, my dad's best friend, was dressed as Santa. But when he returned from getting changed, the costume was cheap and looked nothing like the usual Santa suit. I thought it was odd, but I didn't think much of it. Michael grabbed the bag of gifts and said he'd be right back, but he never returned. My dad and a couple of other men ran after him, and it wasn't until my mom told me that it wasn't actually Michael in the suit that things started to get strange. I joined the search, and eventually, we realized Michael's car was also missing. After a while, I heard someone yelling for help from the woods. I ran to the sound of the cries and found Michael tied to a tree and covered in blood. He had been attacked by 3 men wearing masks. They had knocked him out and stolen his car, as well as the presents. It was a disturbing realization that people would go so far just to steal gifts and hurt someone. Even though Michael survived, it's still a painful memory, and it's something I'll never forget.